Welcome to the state tournament edition of Preps Plus Extra. How you doing? I'm Mark Stewart, prep editor of the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. Joining me as always, JR Radcliff, sports editor of Now Newspapers. Well, JR, it's state tournament time. We're finally here, and we've got, depending on how you look at the area, you got 5-6 area teams competing this week. So let's just jump right into it. Let's take a look at the Division I semifinals, and let's start with you saw Mukwonago beat Madison Memorial in the sectional final. Give us your thoughts on what makes the Indians go.
Yeah, that was a really exciting game. They're a very physical team, and we've talked about that before because they do have so many strong physical football players on that team. Three guys who I think are all going to end up with Division I scholarships when it's all said and done. So their front line is very strong, but not only that, they can run the floor. They are very quick. I mean, Dominic Sizauskis, who's their leading scorer, very good at just moving his arms around, getting deflections, getting steals. And so this was a huge breakthrough from Mukwonago. They were in the sectional final last year against Memorial, fell by 5 or 6 points, came back this year, and even though they were down 11 at one point, they battled back to get their first trip since 1996. So that's a program that has been building to this moment, and they got the breakthrough and they're headed to the Kohl Center.
Yeah, and the one thing with Mukwonago is, you talked about how big and physical they are, but some of those big physical guys have some skill. Nate Tangway is a guy who's about 6'5",
40, I don't know. Yeah.
But he's going to he's got a Division I scholarship for football, and he hit a big three in that game. And he's a guy that if you look at him and think he's just a bruiser out there, you're gonna get he's gonna make some plays against you. So.
And that's a guy who thought even through his sophomore year he'd be a Division I, hopefully a basketball kid. I mean, like Coach Jim Hauser said on the conference call, all these kids wanted to be basketball players growing up. Dominic Sizauskis is a select basketball player. Aaron Nixon, their point guard, is also the quarterback of the football team. He's been a basketball player through and through. So these guys have the basketball background. They're not just guys playing basketball to kill some time in the winter. I mean, they're very accomplished and, like you said, very skilled.
Yeah, well, Mukwonago will face Milwaukee King in the semifinals. Milwaukee King obviously is very familiar with the state tournament experience, and that team starts obviously with senior Austin Malone Mitchell. got the order right this time. Just a fantastic player who to me, not only is he he's a clutch scorer, I think, for them. Not he's a big scorer, but it seems like some guys just have that knack of being able to make plays when you really need them, and I think he has that gift. They got a lot of, beside him, they got a lot of guys I would consider unsung hero types. A guy like Montrell Hobbs, who's a senior, who probably is he's about 6'3", 6'4", but he's probably maybe their best post defender.
Yeah. First team all conference, so he's not too unsung of a hero.
Right, but
people recognize how good he is.
Right, but in terms of he's not a scorer.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, he does other things that gets that team going. So that's going to be an interesting matchup just in terms of Mukwonago. I mean, really, with all due respect to Mukwonago, will they be able to keep up with the pace that King really dictates in terms of them pressing and then really trying to make get out and
King really was a shot away from tying Germantown last year in the state championship game. You forget how close that was, that game. And so I'm sure they're going back thinking, we want a piece of Germantown in that championship game again. I'm sure the natural reaction to that as well. Are they going to look past a Mukwonago? Because obviously Mukwonago with just 4 losses is a very talented team. Are they going to look past them to try to get to Germantown? Then again, you look at Jim Gaz, the Hall of Fame coach on the sideline, and you know that he's not going to allow that to happen. And they've been there plenty of times. They know what the lay of the land is, and I'm sure they'll be locked in and ready to go for Mukwonago.
Right. So the Mukwonago Milwaukee King winner will likely get Germantown defending state champion in the state final. We've both seen this squad play. I'll start with you. We've talked about them on this show as well. But when you look at this group, what jumps out at you when you say Germantown basketball?
That they have everything, They have 2 great 6'7" defenders in John Avercamp and Evan Wiesenberg, and we don't even talk about those guys because they're not scorers and they're not the first guy you think of. You think of the man in the middle, the 7-foot center, Luke Fisher. But to have those 2 6'7" guys is just kind of guys that fill out your starting lineup. That's unfair to them, but just sort of in a relative manner of speaking, because they've got Jake Showalter shooting the ball. They've got Lamonte Bearden, who's an accomplished guard, first team all conference in the North Shore, in addition to Fisher. So it's just amazing the depth they have, the talent they have at every position, the height they have. They're really just they can do everything well.
Yeah, and the one thing I always have liked about Germantown these last couple years is that they do what they're supposed to do. And by that I mean, if they're supposed to blow out a team, they blow them out. They start fast. They do all the little things that, as they have won 54 straight games, they do those little things that, as we've seen, help build, a long winning streak. So, it'll be interesting, I guess Oshkosh North, but obviously, Germantown's, the team to beat in Division I. And speaking of the Warhawks, we caught up with Germantown coach Steve Showalter and standout senior Luke Fisher after they beat Pere on Saturday.
We've gotten to the point where we prepare the same way every day, no matter who we're going to play. And I think that we were ready for their style. We've played all different kind of styles, and we did a good job of handling what they threw at us. We kind of felt like the road to get there was going to be our toughest thing, and now it's a matter of can we step up once we do get there.
We've actually been scouting these guys the whole year. They've been doing the same with us. It pretty much seemed like we both knew each other's plays out there, and it was tough. It's kind of like running against your teams in practice. When they know everything that you're doing. It's different from last year, but it's just as good. We can go 10 deep and not lose a step. So it's the best team out there.
All right, well, let's shift to Division II, where from the area we've got Wisconsin Lutheran facing Stoughton, which I believe is making their first state appearance since 1939. I believe that's what I heard on the teleconference, and that's what I'm sticking with. And on the other side of the bracket, you got defending champion Onalaska against Pulaski. Wisconsin Lutheran is a team. I saw them play a couple times this year, and in comparison to the team they had a few years ago that went to state, where they had a star player or two that's really gotten them, that really helped get them to this point. This year they're kind of, they're more of a collection of guys that really play well together. Although senior DeAndre Cunningham, he was the Little 10 Player of the Year. But even that, he's averaging about 13 points a game. So it's not like any of these guys are going to wow you in terms of what they do individually. It's more of how they play together.
Absolutely, and you don't even see really they don't have height, so you don't go in there thinking, wow, those guys look really imposing, and you see how the scoring is spread out. What surprises me about them is how physical they are, even though they are a somewhat undersized basketball team. They're going to run the floor with you, they're going to push you around if they have to, and they really defensively get after it, and that's been able to carry them. And they play everybody, and that's something that you'll find with Germantown and Dominican and other couple teams that are back to state. They play everybody and anybody. They're not shying away. They're playing a tough schedule. All of their losses are against very quality teams. They played a Kakana team that went to the state championship last year. I think they started 0-2. They opened up with Arrowhead, a very good team, and they started 0-2. But they got themselves ready for this moment. They beat a very good Milwaukee Washington team, shut down Eisenhower in the sectional final, and now they have a really good chance to get to the finals. You look at that Stoughton team with 8 losses, making their first appearance in eons, and they're going to be seen as the big time favorite to get into a matchup with Onalaska, the defending state champion, with Matt Thomas headed to Iowa State. Might be the state player of the year.
Yeah. Now let's shift to Division III, where from the area we've got East Troy. East Troy is going to face Lodi, and on the other end you got Little Chute and La Crosse Aquinas, which won the championship a couple years ago in I believe it was Division III.
Yeah, and this is the most star power you'll find in any division. Division III is loaded. But all 4 of these teams could have been seen as favorites to get to state before the year. I believe Mark Miller, the Wisconsin Basketball Yearbook, actually picked this perfectly. East Troy, we've talked a little bit about them. Nate Dodge, the guard, had a really good playoff series. They've got the 2 towers, Brett and Alex Prawl, the 6'9" kids. So they have options inside and outside. That Little Chute team is the #1 team in the state. They've got 2 great players, Turner Botts and Kenneth Lowe. They're two of the best players in the state, certainly that division. And Aquinas has the Wisconsin recruit Bronson Koenig. So we're talking about a lot of star power, a lot of interest. I would think that's kind of wide open. I think East Troy has just as good a shot. They finally broke through and got to the state tournament for the first time in a couple decades. I think they have just as good a shot as anybody. I'm sure Little Chute feels like they're probably the favorite as the top-ranked team.
Right, and you were talking star players. One guy we didn't mention, Cody Wickman, a UW-Milwaukee recruit, plays for Pulaski.
Yep.
Yeah, and obviously Brett Paul, the Prawl brothers are going to UW-Milwaukee as well. Turner Botts and Ken Lowe, Green Bay recruits. So there are a lot of Nate Dodge Army. For Division III, that's a lot of Division I talent.
Yeah.
In that bracket. And let's shift gears to Division IV, where our last area team, and I don't want to say last, but our final area team will be competing. Whitefish Bay Dominican, Cuba City, a rematch of the state championship game last year, and probably, you know, the top 2 teams in that division all year.
Definitely. That's going to be probably the most heralded matchup in the semifinal round. And Cuba City is undefeated again. They maybe weren't supposed to do this because they had a big senior-heavy lineup last year. The team Dominican beat in the state championship game, so it's a surprise that they come in with the #1 ranking in the state. Dominican, I just mentioned, they play anybody and everybody. They took their lumps. They lost to Little Chute. They took their lumps against Germantown, but here they are, ready for the postseason. They looked really, really good in shutting down Laconia, which was an undefeated team in the sectional final. You know, on TV, they pretty much took care of business against Kenosha St. Joseph. Dwayne Wilson was just fabulous. You know, with Diamond Stone having some injury, or not injury, but foul trouble in both of those games, he was just the best player on the floor, as you'd expect from a guy headed to Marquette.
Yeah, Dwayne Wilson, that's going to be fun watching him play. Don't forget, you know, last year Diamond Stone at State
was a monster.
Yeah, he was fantastic at State, and that was his first go round there. So that's going to be fun to see. But really, the whole term is going to be, you know, it's going to be fun to see. And you know, next week we'll break everything down, as well as talk about the girls' state tournament, which is coming up. But that's going to wrap up another edition of Preps Plus Extra. For more Preps Plus action, you can watch me and Lance Allen every Sunday night on today's TMJ4. Till next time, take care.